Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Calling All Creatures. I am your host, Lori, as I'm hoping most of you know by now since I've been doing this for a while. And tonight I have an interesting podcast with an author and also wolf conservation volunteer activist. So I'm really excited to speak with her about her book and all the good work she's doing working with the wolves and stuff like that. So tonight I have real name Monica, a.k.a. Leokadia, is that correct, George?
Leokadia George, yeah.
Leokadia
That's
George.
Close.
Well, thank you so much for being on. I know obviously your real name's Monica, but you do use the pen name Leokadia for your books and stuff like that. So I'm so happy to have you join me tonight and talk about all the great stuff you're doing with the wolves and about your books.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about Trumpet's story in your podcast.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool when I was taking a look at all that stuff and about how Trumpet came to be and wasn't supposed to and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty cool. So, but maybe we could just kind of start out, for listeners who might not know you yet. So who is Leokadia George and how did Trumpet, the miracle wolf pup, first enter into your life?
Yeah, so I came up with the pen name Leokadia George. It's actually, Leokadia is my great-grandmother, and George is my grandfather. So I kind of wanted to honor them, so I put the two names together, and that's how I came up with the pen name. Excited writing about Trumpet. That's actually my introduction to being an author. I never envisioned myself being an author, but I learned about her story and thought it really would be a great story for young kids, and that's how it all came about.
I know they look like they'd be really cool books for kids to read and stuff. I know I was checking them out and stuff online. So, but before you actually became an author, you had already started volunteering with the wolves. What kind of drew you to volunteering to help out with wolves in the first place?
Yeah, so I started out assisting the education team at the Wolf Conservation Center. People can go visit there, and part of my role was helping direct the traffic, the group that's coming, assisting the educator who is giving the program. I learned a lot in that process. I really learned a lot about these wolves, about conservation, and I started to get more connected with the curator, Rebecca Bose, at the Wolf Conservation Center, and started assisting with animal care. And that's primarily what I do now, is assist her either with the health checks or, cleaning out and refilling the water buckets and other animal care needs.
Yeah, because, you haven't stopped volunteering there. You still volunteer as of today. In fact, you were just telling me before we started that you have to go and make sure the wolves' water buckets are full because of that big storm you guys are going to be having that's coming up. So that's cool that you're still volunteering there with them.
Yeah, I really like it. It's, for me, it's very peaceful. It's also giving back to, our community and, of course, wildlife. And just, I really do feel comfortable, around animals, either observing them or, assisting with their needs. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity to be able to volunteer at a great organization.
Yeah, so in your books that you've been putting out about Trumpet, her journey's actually now coming full circle in your books because she's gone from being the miracle pup to now being a mother. So what did writing that transformation mean to you personally?
So initially, it was just me wanting to tell her story. And, I kind of saw that this would be a really great story for young kids, one of the best ways to tell young kids stories is through children's books. So that's how the idea of writing children's books about her came about. And it for me, there's been a lot of growth. I didn't know what I was doing, as far as marketing the books or anything about this world of, being a children's book author. So there was a huge learning curve for me. But it's been interesting. I've met a lot of great, amazing people along the way, learned a lot about, this field as well as myself. I really did have to, come out of my shell a little bit. I'm a bit of an introvert, and so and quiet. So that's one of the things that I really had to change about myself. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, I understand completely. I'm an introvert myself, so doing the podcast and some of the other stuff that I do is a big change for me. To have to, because I'm also quiet. I don't like to get up and speak or say things in front of like big crowds and stuff like that. But I do the podcast now. Plus, I do dog training, so I really have to be able to talk in front of people. So yeah, I understand completely how that can go. So you really do get to change some things when when you have that kind of a personality. So.
Right.
And working with the wolves, that must be so cool. I mean, I would love to be able to do something like that. I actually interviewed for the podcast a while back at International Wolf Center. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was really cool talking to them. And, of course, they have the webcam set up. So now I watch the wolves on the webcams and stuff like that. But so
yeah, that you can really lose a lot of time watching these wolves. And sometimes you're just watching them like sleeping and you're just like, oh. But they are really peaceful. Webcams are great because, the wolves really don't want to have anything to do with humans. So we can watch them and not be in their space or making them nervous just by our presence. So I highly recommend watching webcams, and a number of facilities do have them, including the Wolf Conservation Center. So continue watching them, learning about them. It's just a great resource.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad that you mentioned that they also have a webcam because I didn't realize that they had one. So that's cool. I'll have to put that in my list of webcams. I watched the wolves, I watched the bats, I watched the eagles.
Yeah.
The dolphins and stuff down at the Marine Aquarium in Florida, stuff like that. So I love watching them all.
Yeah.
Bats are fun to watch, too, let me tell you. They're so much fun to watch. And, Bat World has the webcams. So they're kind of cool that you get to see what the bats do, and they're eating and they're playing and stuff like that. So... yeah.
Right, yeah.
I love doing it.
Yeah.
Great education to be able to watch them, because they're in their natural habitats. I'm assuming Wolf Conservation Center is kind of the same thing as International. They have their own natural habitat that they live in and stuff, correct?
Yes, yeah, they have their space. They're, even though it is an enclosure, it is pretty large. I think their smallest one is an acre. So most of them have more than an acre, which is not, anything that they would have in the wild, but it's still, something where they can, be, if we are in the area, they can run and hide, and, roam around and have a little bit of their own space. So, and for the web cameras, we do have to sometimes move the camera to kind of try and find them because they will roam around.
Now, I probably should kind of clarify, too, the wolves that you are, I'm assuming, mainly working with, I don't know if you work with other varieties, but you're working with the Mexican gray wolves, correct?
Yeah, Mexican gray wolves and red wolves. The Wolf Conservation Center does have Rocky Mountain gray wolves. They are their ambassador wolves. So that's a little bit different than the red wolves and the Mexican gray wolves, who they are, considered wild. So even though they're in enclosures, they're not hand raised by humans. They don't have that socialization process to humans, so they're still quite fearful, and we let them do their own thing for the most part.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. I just wanted to kind of specify that that's the species of wolves that you're working with there at the conservation centers, because I think each one, International, I think actually works with probably the gray wolves, the larger gray wolves and stuff like that. But so that's pretty cool. So while you were writing about Trumpet and her wolf motherhood, what was kind of the most touching or surprising thing that you learned about wolf motherhood while you wrote that part of her story?
Yeah, so, and I should note that, we spoke about the web cameras. Trumpet actually had that first litter of wolves that I wrote about in her fourth book. She had them on the web cameras live. There's a den camera, and so she chose that den and gave birth to them. She nursed them, took care of them, all in that den in front of, an audience that got to watch her do this. And for me, it was... she really came into her own. I guess, maybe I shouldn't have been this surprised, but I was a little surprised how flawlessly she embraced motherhood. I mean, she just went into that role, with no hiccups, and it really was beautiful to see, how she changed into a mother. So that was something that, I was really heartwarming and nice to see.
Yeah, that would have been really cool to be able to see that on the webcam. That would have been really cool. I'll admit that. That would be really something to see a wolf, having her babies and then taking care of them and raising them and stuff. That's pretty cool that you got the chance to do that. So let's kind of rewind, since we're talking about, Trumpet having babies. Let's rewind just a little bit to Trumpet's beginning. Why was her birth considered like such a miracle? For the gray wolves, were they younger than what we thought, or was it harder for the Mexican grays to have offspring? So why was hers such a miracle birth?
So, just like humans, animals can have fertility issues. And unfortunately, her father had fertility issues. So he was the number one most genetically distinct wolf in the entire Mexican gray wolf population. And so they really needed, him to have a lot of puppies for his line to live on. But that unfortunate fertility issue enabled him to only have one, and that was Trumpet, and that was even considered a miracle. So she kind of got this little nickname in addition to Trumpet, the Miracle Wolf Pup. And, when I started to learn about that part of the story, fertility issues aside, I said, explaining a miracle to kids, that's perfect. They relate to that, they like that, and get excited about it. And also, as far as young kids, usually they relate to one character, one being first, and then can open up to more, characters. But usually in a litter, they have more than one wolf. And so considering that she was the only one, I really felt like this was the perfect story for young kids in particular. That's
really cool. I was kind of wondering what the deal was, but yeah, understandable that animals can have the same kind of fertility issues that humans can. Why would we think that it wouldn't work like that?
Right, yeah.
So that's really cool. At least he had her. That's...
Right.
Yeah.
His line would have died out without her, and so we really have to be grateful for at least that.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're writing your books and stuff like that, how do you approach explaining concepts like family, responsibility, and nurturing in a way that young children can understand? Because sometimes that stuff can be a little harder for kids to understand.
Yeah, in all honesty, I think sometimes we just need to simplify things. What do kids think about when they think about family? They think about love, an older being caring for them, taking care of their needs. But they also think of, what they really relate to is snuggles and kisses, so that's one of the things that I really included in there, and show that, that wolves do that. They do snuggle with their pups. They do give the kisses. They do, in addition to, nursing, they do play with the puppies. And those are things that I think kids, when they think about family, that's really what they attach to. and it's just wolves are a great example of showing that.
Yeah, I mean, well, and wolves are like a family unit. I mean, they are in their packs, and usually you do have mom, dad, and pups and stuff like that. Aunts, uncles, I'm assuming, and stuff like that too. So it is a more of a family unit. Like several of the other species, lions and stuff like that are usually like that as well. They have their prides, and it's kind of the same thing. They have a family unit. Elephants. So it stands to reason that especially wolves, which, our domesticated dogs came from, we know domesticated dogs most of the time like to, be in a pack or have, others around. Sometimes that's not the case. Like with my oldest girl I still have left, she was very picky. But, yeah, I can understand, how
but they our dogs, they consider us family.
Yes.
So it's they consider us their pack. So and that's one of the more interesting things about wolves is that they are open to unique families. So one of the things that they can do with wolves is they can actually take some of these puppies and foster them into another family. So one of the ways that they will get the genetic material from the captive wolves to the wild population is they'll take some of the puppies from a captive family, fly them out to a denning mother that has puppies around the same age, and they will put those puppies in with her. She will adopt them, and they will be fully part of the family. And it was one of the things I noted in the fourth book that, wolves, when you're family. Some of the families, the wolf packs at the Wolf Conservation Center are made up of siblings. So they still consider themselves fully family with the hierarchy, but it's all about family. It's all about respecting each other. It's all about teamwork. It's all about living with each other. In the wild, obviously, the procreation is a huge factor. So typically the packs in the wild are mother, father, and offspring, various litters, different years. But there are certain scenarios where, one of the parents will end up dying, and, there has been cases that they've documented where it was the mother who died and the father reared the puppies, and then obviously they will try to find another mate to continue on. But there are at times single parent households in the wild and as well in captivity. So it's just amazing to think how similar they are to us, and to highlight those different family dynamics.
Right, exactly. I'm glad you brought up that, dogs think of us as their family, their pack, because they really do. And unfortunately, we don't always consider them as like family. There's so many people out there that consider them as just like a property, or, it's just a dog.
Right.
And that's not the case for many of us. I know I've seen people get upset when someone says, well, yeah, my fur baby, or my I'm the dog's daddy or whatever, and they're like, well, you're not really their dad, and they're not babies, and it's like, well, to some of us they are. I mean, that's how we think about it. They're a part of our family. They're not just something that we have, like a piece of property. I really wish we could get those laws changed to have them. I think 1 or 2 states might have done it, or is working on getting that changed so that they're not considered property. So hopefully we'll get to that evolvement.
Right, yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've been following along with that. Have you heard about the wolf that was just shot and killed? Her mother died. I'm not sure if she was also killed, but then the daughter was, they were hoping was going to start taking over the matriarchal aspects of the pack that was there. And someone shot and killed her now. So
oh no, I have not heard about that.
Yeah, it's they've had some of the stories on like Facebook and stuff like that. So I think there's a reward out. They're trying to find out what happened or who shot her and stuff like that, because like we've been talking about, it has to do with genetics and lines and stuff like that, and continuing on these certain genetics and certain lines, and they were hoping that that's what was going to happen with her, and now she's been shot and killed as well. So not a good thing.
No, yeah.
So with Trumpet Becoming a Mother, that book, what do you kind of hope children and adults reading along might take away from that?
I for the most part, what I really want children to take away from these books is joy. I want them to be happy to learn about Trumpet's story, to have fun, learning about her story, to be super intrigued and interested, and that might be an opening for them to want to learn more about conservation, at a young age, and as they grow up, to have this be kind of a starting point for them to get interested in conserving these amazing animals. But ultimately, the wolves in a lot of stories have gotten such a bad rap that one of the things I just really wanted them to learn about is, the more realistic version of wolf that's scared of humans, that has feelings and just wants to be with their family and live their best life. So that's one of the things I wanted them to take away, and kind of correct the wrong that has been done with this, some of these other stories that have this fictitious monster as a wolf, and that's just not really who they are.
Yeah, like Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, that's one of the first
Right.
ones as a kid, and Three Little Pigs, those kinds of things. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're trying to change the outlook and what people think, because those stories are, like you said, fictitious, and they don't really show the true nature of wolves and what they really are. So I'm so glad that you're, trying to change the aspect on that. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
So, of course, you've written, like you said, several. Is it 4 books now, or are you?
Yeah, so the series has now, I launched the 4th book this past year, and I'm hoping that the 5th book will launch this year. So hopefully all the illustrations can come in and in a timely manner. All this is a process. Another thing that I'm learning is, how long things take to develop. And so we'll see, but fingers crossed for that her 5th book will be launched this year. But yeah, it's been really amazing, like each book, to kind of develop that and highlight that and see how kids react to the books. It's fun to watch kids listening to her story.
Well, yeah, because, your books follow along, all the different stages of her life: birth, growing up, finding love and having a mate of her own, and, of course, now motherhood. So I'm assuming the 5th book is going to be kind of like grandmotherhood, maybe?
No. What the 5th book will be highlighting is her second litter.
Okay.
And one of the wolves in that litter was cross-fostered into the wild. What we discussed earlier, where she was flown out into the wild. Actually, it was Light Hawk Conservation Flying that flew her out. So they're a great organization that helps endangered species by donating their flights for, relocating endangered species either to the wild or a different facility that can meet that animal's needs. So it's been amazing to include them in the books. But yeah, one of her her puppies was cross-fostered into the wild, and it was also an interesting story how she got cross-fostered, and so this book will highlight a little bit of that as well.
Well, that's pretty cool that, we're going into the second litter. Did you kind of always think that your series was going to follow her entire life? Is that something you kind of envisioned, or did you just kind of think, I'll write a book about her and then we'll be done? What kind of happened?
Well, originally I wanted it to be one story. And then as I kind of realized, this is just way too much information to all fit into one story for young kids. If it was for older kids, we could have had one story, but for younger kids, we just don't want to overwhelm them. So at that point, I realized it was going to be a series, and then it was breaking up, how do you break up the different stories? And like you said, just different I guess times of her life was the best way to break up the series, to break up the stories into a series. So at that point, I knew it was going to be a series, which is great because then you don't have to rush through certain parts of her life. You really can take more of a deep dive into her experiences during that part of her life, and that's also been fun to do.
Right. And of course, Trumpet has changed, along the way over the series times. She's grown up. She's become a mom. So she's kind of changed as a character. So have you also kind of changed as an author along this whole road that you're going down with her story?
Yeah. So you touched upon public speaking, and that's also been something that has been a challenge for me, including reading the book to kids. Having that group of kids sitting there waiting for you to read the story. That's been that would get the butterflies going, but it actually, people say it becomes easier as you get more accustomed to it, and I don't know if it necessarily becomes easier, but it really was the feedback from the kids, just as I'm reading the story to them, watching them kind of like getting excited, bouncing in the seat, when Trumpet's discovered in the box, that all of a sudden, you have the kids' eyes light up and get really excited that the miracle, pup is there. So just watching them react kind of got me a lot more excited to be able to read the story and to a group. And so that really helped me along the way.
Yeah. So we haven't really said, what age group have you kind of targeted for Trumpet stories? I mean, obviously older kids, I'm sure, would probably enjoy the stories as well, and maybe some adults, but what age group were you trying to target with the stories?
So the stories are best for ages 3 to 8. And I have gotten some feedback for some younger families with younger kids saying that their kids really like the story. So every family knows what the maturity level as far as story reading their kids have. But yeah, 3 to 8 is the best age range. But yeah, you kind of touched upon this. Her story, even like older people have kind of read through the story and teared up and been like, this is really, really great. And the younger kids will take a different, I guess, take things differently from the story, maybe attach more to the family concept, and the older age range, they'll take more of the conservation aspects from the story. So it is great that the story can be interesting to people at different age ranges, and I think it's a wonderful thing for older kids to be able to read this story to younger kids, and then everybody can have a conversation about conservation where the younger kids are not really left out, because conservation can be really complex, but I think this is a great way to include them in into knowing that conservation is important.
Yeah, and one of my granddaughters is 5, and I'm her birthday's coming up here pretty soon in March, and I'm thinking about getting the books for her because I think she'd really enjoy reading about Trumpet and stuff too. So,
that would be amazing.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about getting them for her because she loves to. She's the only one I think out of all my grandkids that really takes after me and really likes to read and stuff.
Oh.
So and her mom reads to her all the time and stuff like that. So I was thinking about getting them for her birthday because I really think she'd enjoy them as well. So.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And, being a March baby, she may actually share a birthday with a wolf. So, spring babies, they, wolves are born in spring. So, it's kind of fun to have a shared birthday with a wolf.
Yeah. Well, there we go. I could tell her that too. Hey, you might be sharing a birthday with a wolf pup. You never know. So, how do you kind of balance staying true to real conservation stories while still creating your gentle, engaging children's books?
So it actually, her story, one of the reasons why I thought her story was so great, because it does highlight various aspects of conservation that not every wolf story will highlight. So, for example, her miracle birth highlights how critically endangered this species is. And, of course, we have the staff there, so in these books you can highlight that there are people doing conservation work. But also, her mate was flown in to the Wolf Conservation Center by Light Hawk Conservation Flying, as I mentioned before. And just that aspect, to be able to highlight that a wolf got on a plane, which, by the way, kids really get excited about. But also it does highlight that conservation is not limited to just the people that are dealing with animal care. So that was another way that her story in particular could highlight different aspects of conservation. And also not every wolf has had the opportunity to have one or more of their puppies cross-fostered into the wild, and that also highlights a different aspect of conservation. So really, it just her story as it is true, it does highlight conservation naturally. But also, we spoke about the web cameras. They're just a great opportunity to watch wolves interact with each other or just how they behave, without thinking that they're being watched. And you can learn a lot. And a lot of the content that I got for these books was just through what we've observed on those web cameras or in videos. So in that aspect, I was able to kind of highlight just the personality and just natural behaviors. And, we've spoken about it. Watching, it is interesting. It is comforting in a lot of ways. Wolves, a lot of what they do is just kind of peacefully sitting there, laying there, observing things, sniffing things. And these are all things that were included into the books. And kind of for young kids, it's a nice way to be able to, in a sense, observe her behavior and her interactions.
Yeah, exactly. And your books really are, more than just stories. They're actually really a doorway, that kids and others can step through to learn more about conservation and stuff like that. So it's awesome, that there's authors out there like you that are writing these types of books and trying to bring more awareness, especially to, when you can bring it to kids, I think they learn, they're little sponges and they soak this stuff up and they learn, and they're learning what needs to happen and what they need to do to try to save, different endangered species, and learning to take care of their ecosystems and stuff like that. So I think it's awesome, that you guys are doing these kinds of things and trying to get these kids, more education about these things. So it's pretty cool that it's going on. Now, with that being said, how did volunteering at the Wolf Conservation Center kind of shape your own mission when it comes to conservation and stuff like that?
So initially, when I first started, I really didn't know how, I didn't know that there were Mexican gray wolves and red wolves that, are critically endangered. So initially, it was a lot of learning, assistance with, what was needed for those various programs. But a lot of it was just kind of absorbing, all the information and learning. And then that continued on with animal care, being, especially being a part of a team to be able to help, meet these needs that the wolves have. It also expanded out. I did not know all these aspects of conservation. I did not know that light hawk conservation flying existed. Just in that sense, that's really cool. There's other ways that people will assist saving these species without, physically being at the Wolf Conservation Center or another site. That's grant writing, or writing representatives to, say how important these species are. So there's all different ways people can assist in conservation. And for me, it opened my world up a lot, just being at the Wolf Conservation Center and learning and assisting in the process.
Yeah, and and it's funny because, with light hawk conservation, doing the flying and stuff, I had another rescue sanctuary on what we call Turpentine Creek, and they save the big cats like lions, tigers, ligers, and they have some bears and stuff like that. And when we were doing the podcast, they were telling me they were doing a couple different missions where they were going in to rescue. I'm pretty sure it was lions. I think one was maybe in Canada, and then the other one was, I can't remember which country, but the process and the things that they have to go through to be able to get those animals transported from where they're getting them to their sanctuary is just amazing, because crates have to be built for them, because they have to have, they're lions and stuff, they have to have the special types of crates. Things like that. And then, it was a matter of not just flying, but I think at one point they had to go on shipboard to get to where they could be flown, and then of course by, vehicle or whatever to get to their final sanctuary. So it's amazing what these groups are doing to rescue these animals and to help with the conservation efforts.
Right. And a lot of times there will be a veterinarian that will volunteer their services to be there just to make sure, the animal is safe and healthy, and to be there to, assist medically if needed, which is what often happens. And there's a whole group of volunteer veterinarians that assist the Wolf Conservation Center with their the wolf's healthcare needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's awesome that those veterinarians will volunteer their time for that too, because that's really cool. It's fun because I just did a podcast with Dr. Cliff, Worldwide Vet, and he travels around to different countries and volunteers his services, to help out with different things. He's been in Ukraine, of course the war is still going on, but he's been in Ukraine, helping out animals during that. He's assisted different wildlife, conservation places. He's had to treat bald eagles. All sorts of stuff. So, and he volunteers all that time, so it's awesome that there's vets out there that are willing to do that kind of stuff and help out with efforts like this. So more kudos for all those people. Exactly. Yeah. So you did touch on, that the Mexican gray wolves are, critically endangered. Do you know, do you have any actual numbers or statistics as to how endangered that they really are, and why does the fact that they're endangered matter so much?
Yeah, so they are critically endangered, and when they located the last remaining wolves in the wild, Mexican gray wolves in the wild, it was in Mexico, and it ended up being 7 wolves. So in that, they had to create a breeding program with geneticists to be able to build up the numbers, but in a way that, the wolves could, have a chance to not go fully extinct. So they're still considered critically endangered. In the wild, I believe they have in the U.S. about 285, something like that. And I think they have some, maybe 30 or somewhere around that number in Mexico. So it's not just in the U.S., it's also Mexico that has these wolves in the wild. And in the wild, they were considered full siblings, just through the inbreeding process, because they're so closely related. And that is why, having the genetic material from some of the captive wolves getting out into the wild population is so important, and why getting Trumpet's puppies out into the wild is so important, because she's so genetically unique to the other wolves. It was important to get her genetic material from her father out into the wild. So cross-fostering or fostering is one of the ways to do that. But another way that a lot of conservation groups really feel is important is to release families into the wild. They have a much better chance of surviving as a pack being introduced into the wild, rather than this fragile puppy. The puppies really, they have like a 50% chance of surviving, and then even if they do survive, it is only the breeding pair that will have puppies. So unless that particular puppy decides to disperse and create a family of their own, that genetic material is still not going to get into the wild. So ultimately, conservation groups want full families to be released into the wild, and that's something that they're trying to work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to be able to have that process be started again.
Yeah, I was excited because I had read a story that they were going to release some of the Mexican gray wolves here in the county where I live. And we have so many closed-minded, uneducated people that complained about having wolves released here that they didn't do it. And I was just like, are you kidding me right now? I don't know. Oh, my God, we don't want them killing our pets. We have ranchers and stuff here, obviously, and oh my God, we can't have them come. And I'm thinking, mountain lions probably kill more of your cattle than what these wolves would. So, anyway, so they did not get released here in my county, which I was very sad about. I could not believe.
That's unfortunate. One of the things that we do recognize, and a lot of conservation groups, will want to work with ranchers to be able to keep their livestock safe from, even though it is a very small percentage that end up getting killed by wolves. We would really like that number to be 0. And, so we do try to work with ranchers to be able to create ways to reduce wolf predation on livestock. To there's various techniques that they can kind of scare wolves away, and also sometimes it's just a matter of if ranchers are going to have their livestock grazing on public lands that is in an area where a wolf, let's say, is denning, try to see if there's a different area that they can have their livestock grazing, because obviously when the wolves are denning, they're kind of stuck in that area, so they're going to eat what's in that area. So simple things like that, but also other more interesting ways. They recently started incorporating drones where, if they see that a collared wolf is in an area, where their livestock is, they can fly those drones in. They start blasting AC/DC. Apparently, they are not big fans. Wolves are not big fans of AC/DC, even though I am. But to each his own. But that in particular scared away some wolves from predating on some of the livestock there. So there's just all different ways that can be done. Obviously, as part of this is raising money to be able to buy, let's say, those drones. But the bigger part, I think, is to have that conversation, and that real conversation, to acknowledge that the ranchers, value their livestock, and that is their livelihood, and to be able to work with them. And I think that process is starting to happen more and more, and hopefully that will continue.
Well, and that kind of touches right back to children and what the role is going to be when they grow up, and what, how they're going to approach wildlife conservation and stuff. Because if they learn about these things now, they'll know in the future, if they become, ranchers and stuff like that, hey, there are other ways of doing these things. We don't need to, kill these wolves. We can scare them off. We can do. I watch, and it's so funny, I watch mountain men all the time on TV. And some of the mountain men, there's one guy, he's got his pack of dogs, and that's kind of what they do with the mountain lions that come down into, the ranchers' areas. He'll take his dogs out there. He doesn't kill the cats. He literally uses his dogs, and he pushes them miles away from that rancher's area, and tries to gets the cat to understand, hey, this is not the area for you. You need to go over here to hunt. So I think it's kind of cool that, they hire him to come and just push the mountain lions back instead of just having them killed. So same thing with wolves. Like you said, drones and stuff like that. You could do the same thing. You don't need to kill them. You can get them pushed back. So.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of success in that. So, that's another thing that, we want to, really come back with the hard, numbers, the facts, to be able to work with ranchers and say, hey, this does work. Let's work as a team to get this done. And that way it's a win-win and actually win. It's, the conservationists win, the ranchers win, but also the wolves win, and so that way we can just coexist, and that's ultimately our goal.
Yep, exactly. So there is a Lobo Week as well. So let's go ahead and talk about Lobo Week real quick.
Yeah, so Lobo Week, it's typically the third week, the end of March when that happens, and it's a celebration of reintroducing these wolves into the wild, into Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico. So it is an anniversary to celebrate when this critically endangered species that almost went fully extinct from the earth, but did actually go extinct from the wild when it was able to be, when they were able to be reintroduced back into the wild and live their natural life. And so we like to, at the Wolf Conservation Center, highlight that, and also to be able to have people kind of hashtag Lobo Week with their pictures of wolves and learn about these wolves. So it's really fun time to get everybody involved and learn about this amazing species.
Awesome. So everybody, don't forget March Lobo Week. Look it up, and if you have any pictures with wolves and stuff like that, do that hashtag and post those pictures out there and help people recognize the wolves during Lobo Week.
Right, and you can even, draw your own wolf. If you don't have any pictures of wolves, draw your own wolf, hashtag that. You can take a picture with the book, one of the books, and hashtag Lowell Week. You can, sometimes we would just have a headband with little wolf ears on there, wear that and, take a picture and hashtag Lowell Week. Any way that we can kind of highlight this and get the more people involved is just what we want to do.
And yeah, what a great idea for like maybe some of the teachers out there listening for that is have your class draw pictures, the younger kids, have them draw the pictures of the wolves and stuff like that and do that hashtag and put all those pictures out there that your kids draw. That would be a really cool idea for schools to do.
100%, yeah.
So you actually do give back to the conservation effort through some of your book proceeds and stuff like that. So you're actually, helping to support the real world conservation efforts with that. So
yeah, I donate 50% of my royalties from the books back to the Wolf Conservation Center. I also donate an additional percentage then to Lighthawk Conservation Flying because I think they're doing amazing work. So it's just fun to, think that, Trumpet's story, like she herself is bringing in money to help conservation. That's kind of like a fun concept, even if she, doesn't know that. But it's really been an honor to be able to highlight her story, and I'm really grateful to the Wolf Conservation Center for allowing me to volunteer and learn about her story, and just to be able to do this, to write her story and share it.
Yeah, and it's awesome because, for the way the books are geared, parents, teachers, or caregivers, they can use your books to help start conversations about empathy and protecting the wildlife. And, no matter what wildlife it is, those books are a good, like I said before, a good doorway that's open to help, adults, parents, teachers, whatever the case may be, to help these kids learn more about empathy and about conservation efforts and protecting our wildlife, because we have so much wildlife. I mean, not just the Mexican gray wolves, but so many other species that are being killed off or encroached upon because of, all the areas that we're building into. There's actually quite a few species out there that are endangered that I never even realized were endangered until I started talking to people on this podcast. And I'm just like, really? Oh my God, I can't believe this. So it's great that your books give that stepping stone for them.
Yeah, thank you. And, I do have to say, like, each book has its own uniqueness, but for teachers, I think the second book, Trumpet Grows Up, is perfect. It goes through pup development, but it goes through it in a way that, kids can kind of laugh about or find interesting. Just the concept of the development of olfactory skills, wolves being able to, smell, their sense of smell developing. And, for in the story, it's because she, smelled her mommy's poop and recognized it was her mommy's poop instead of her daddy's poop. But I mean, that's a fun way to kind of, introduce that concept, and teachers can expand upon that. What does that mean? That those olfactory senses, how does that develop, depending on the age range for the kids. But, at each point, for that development, the story kind of guides that process along. And I think that book in particular would be great for teachers to use as far as just highlighting various aspects of development.
Yeah, yep. So we've talked about quite a few different things when it comes to the wolves, but what's one thing out of all of this that you wish everyone actually did know about wolves?
So one of the things I really would like people to know about wolves is that they really want to do their own thing. They don't want to have anything to do with us. I think, people just have this idea of that the wolves are always like looking at us, watching us, and the worst case scenario that they want to eat us. And it's really so far from the truth. They really just they don't want to be around us. They want to do their own thing in the wild. And that's one of the things I took effort into highlighting in the books, is that, when the people are there, the wolves are scared. They're trying to hide. They're trying to get away, and I think it's just the opposite of what we've learned from those initial bad wolf stories. It really is something that I would like people to take away from these books, but also to recognize that, wolves are animals. They have feelings. They have, their needs, and that's something that I also like to highlight, is that, each wolf is unique, but is also, a caring and feeling animal.
Yep. So we've already talked about, your fifth book that's going to be coming out, about Trumpet's next litter of pups. So anything after that that's next for you or for Trumpet?
There is a possibility for this, for not this series to go on, but for a, I guess, segue series or segue book. One of those cross-fostered pups, one of Trumpet's puppies that had been flown out to the wild, he was actually located when he was about 5 months old. Oh, nice. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, when they scanned the chip that each puppy gets, they recognized this was one of Trumpet's, and so they were able to put a collar on him and track his movements. And so there's a possibility for a book for an older age range to be written about his experiences and his life, track through the movements and what we know about his life and what he's been exposed to. So that's a possibility. Well, we'll see. Right now I'm focused on the fifth book, so I kind of get, I have to put that on the shelf for this moment.
Yeah, well, it's always something that you could look forward to, because I think that would be interesting to have a story that's now about one of her pups that's actually out in the wild and making his way and learning, and being a wild wolf, not in a conservation area. So I think that would be really cool if you get a chance to do that. So if Trumpet could actually speak directly to our listeners today, what message do you think that she'd want to try to get out there to them?
Yeah, and that's always like a curious thing. Like, what would she really say? She'd probably really say, "Hey, just leave me alone." Probably. I don't really want to have anything to do with you. Can you just leave me alone? So she'd probably say something like that. But ultimately, I think she would be happy that she's been able to have a large family, and ultimately that some of her offspring have been able to live wild lives, be able to be cross-fostered and have that chance to live ultimately the life that any wolf would want, which is to be free, living their wild life with their family.
That's I could see her saying that, yeah, especially the leave me alone part. I just want to just quit looking at me. I just want to be me. So
right, yeah.
Well, we're coming to the end of our podcast here, Monica, but would you like to throw out where people can get the Trumpet, the Wolf books, and any contact info if you'd like to give that out, where people could learn more about you and about Trumpet?
Sure, yes. So the Wolf Conservation Center, they sell the books there. So they sell them also online, so you can buy the books. nywolf.org is their site, course, they have those web cameras, and they have a wealth of information about wolf conservation and these wolves. So definitely check out their site. You can get them there, or you can get them from my publisher, Riley and Baxter Publication. They sell the book. They have the bookstore, online bookstore that they sell the books. Or of course, you can get them at Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can also ask your independent bookstore. They can often get the books either online, or some of them have been starting to carry the books. So, just ask them if you'd like to get the books. If you would like to contact me, leokadiageorge.books@gmail.com is my email. So, I'd love to be able to speak with you, talk more about wolves or these books. So definitely reach out if you have any questions. I would just say, enjoy these books. Read them to kids. It's fun. It's fun to have a group howl. Each book has a howling moment. So, definitely, get those vocal cords going, and, it's a great bonding moment. So definitely do that, and just share Trumpet's story.
Well, now I'm definitely going to have to get them and read them to my granddaughter so we can howl together. That would be fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Monica, I am so glad that you were able to be on the podcast and talk more about Trumpet and Wolf Conservation Center and wolf conservation in general. It's been great listening to you and all of the, hearing about all of this kind of stuff and all of the efforts that are going on and learning more about Trumpet and her story. And I hope that you get to keep volunteering there at the Wolf Conservation Center for a long time and helping out these wolves as much as you do. It's awesome, all the work that everybody does in these conservation efforts. So I'm so happy that we were able to get more information out there.
Thank you so much for highlighting these stories and conservation and everything that you do to help wildlife. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share Trumpet's story.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to be really great books. Like I said, I'm going to have to get them for my granddaughter because I really do think that she would enjoy them. And it's just something, like you said, is kind of a bonding thing and stuff like that. So I'm definitely going to be looking at getting them for her birthday.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And with that being said, I just am going to announce my next podcast that's coming up. So you're welcome to stay on, but I know, people are busy and have other things to do. So you're also welcome to jump off right now and go about doing whatever you need to get done while I do my announcements. But again, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
All right. And have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. So just to let you know, the next upcoming podcast, I'm actually going to have Yaritza Acosta on with me, and she works with Pelican Harbor. And Pelican Harbor is an organization that does a lot of seabird rescue and stuff like that. So they started out rescuing brown pelicans, and they have kind of expanded from there, and they rescue quite a few different seabirds now. So I'm looking forward to having Yaritza on to speak with us about Pelican Harbor. That's the only one I've got to give you guys right now. I know normally do two, but I haven't quite figured out who I'm going to have on the podcast yet for April 2nd. I've got some invites out there, and I'm waiting to hear back, but it'll be an interesting one, I'm sure. So I'm looking forward to having you guys come back, though, and listen in a couple weeks when I'm talking with Yaritza about Pelican Harbor and learning more about seabirds and the rescue and the organization and what all they do. So you guys stay safe out there. Have a great weekend. Don't get into trouble. And always try to be kind to others and animals. I'm going to try to take up, as Dr. Cliff says, be kind to animals. He's got a good saying there. Everybody should listen to him. So, all right, guys, I hope you all have a great weekend. And come on back in a couple weeks. Bye now.